This is episode 113 about Takt planning. Do you know about this game-changing technique? Stay with us.
This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome, everyone. I hope you're all doing well, staying safe, and now looking forward to Thanksgiving as I am. Today, we'll be talking about Takt planning. So I learned about Takt planning quite a few years ago. I think it was probably even 12, 14 years ago I learned about Takt planning. And I heard about when Hensel Phelps used it in the Pentagon renovation and that it really, really worked for that renovation. Huge mega project. And I saw some of the templates that they used and then took those templates myself and started to use them at the Cancer Center, and then refined it and developed it at the research laboratory. And then in other future projects, expanded it to be an entire project scheduling system. So when I was at DPR, we had the lean construction methodology folks from Germany help us and explain that Takt planning can really be applied to the entire project, not just the interiors, not just typical standard kind of Takt areas. So I really feel like instead of just, taking a system and learning it from somebody else after it's fully developed, I really feel like I was a part of the development of Takt, at least the way we use it in our local region, not all over the world, because the Europeans, the Germans have been using this for decades now, and it's absolutely fantastic. But I love Takt. I've seen it work time and time again, and it's absolutely fantastic. So we're going to cover Takt planning over the next couple of days and really answer the questions of what is it, how do you use it, how can you go learn more. So absolutely fantastic content. This is a game changer. I also did a LinkedIn video post about this, got some really good feedback. I'll post this podcast episode on there and the other ones coming. Stay with us. So the things I'm excited about right now is that we are taking a major step in construction towards bringing flow back into our projects. I hate the concept that everything needs to be done right now. And accidentally, and some, CPM users, and let's just make something clear here really quickly. I use P6. I've used P6 before as the superintendent. It was my main tool. I know how to do it. I know the logic. I've read the books. I know how to use it, and I still have to use it all the time. What I'm saying is that it's not the quickest method, and that Takt planning will really take us into a wonderful, wonderful direction. And so our industry is taking major steps towards bringing back flow into our projects and getting away from the forward and backward pass of just moving everything over to the left so that it can be done as soon as possible, but rather putting things into a proper flow. And before I go any farther, I do want to thank the person that reached out to me for this. It was on a LinkedIn comment, and I'm giving this content, these next couple of episodes, to you and to anybody else who wants to know more about Takt planning. So he asked me for more information. That has prompted the creation of these podcasts, and I'm going to put together a series of video trainings, training on Takt, so that everyone can have access to it. So let's start out with a little bit of conflict today. Scheduling projects is currently too complex, and scheduling and planning should actually be fairly simple. So I have a recent experience with a mega project. I won't tell you the dollar amount, but it's 150 plus. And we had to really hit the ground running with this and get some quick planning done in a couple of days. So we had a deadline. And what we decided to do, which is what I believe in, is to create an overall master schedule, an overall master plan with Takt, which then brought with it the key milestones that we had to meet. And then from those milestones, we do a pull plan with the overall project team and identify the steps and make collaborative commitments on how we're going to meet those milestones, and then work together in teams with Last Planner or teams with Scrum teams. And it's absolutely fantastic. So we presented to the owner this overall Takt plan. They had production rates. They were in overall summary bars. It was pretty neat. And then they could see the actual Takt, the rhythm from now to 4 months out ahead, that we were diving into that detail and really vetting that schedule and bringing forward that detail towards those milestones, and really making our focus the driving towards those milestones and the removal of the roadblocks, not the management of the schedule. And it was absolutely and is absolutely fantastic. The owner bought off on it. They can see the schedule. They were very happy about being able to see the schedule. They saw that we had a plan. They were absolutely delighted. Now let's go ahead and talk about Takt. Now I've put together a little PowerPoint presentation, so I'm switching from my notes over to this PowerPoint. I will include this in future videos, but in the meantime, I'm going to explain it. So Takt planning really is a description, and sometimes in Germany they call it takting or takt time, but Takt planning, which is what we call it in the States, really describes a way to plan a project using rhythm, using a stagger, using flow, and then we can actually identify the takt time of certain activities, and then we are able to use that as a system to manage the project. So I call it Takt planning, and we will get into some of the terms and other things here in a little bit, but I'm going to describe this from what the industry currently does now, and then go into a way that we can do it. So what does the industry do? Well, most companies use CPM, and so they'll have their master schedule, and then they will dictate look-ahead schedules, give those to the trade partners, or actually in that case, not trade partners, they treat them as subcontractors, and they force it down their throats and tell them what to get done, and they have meetings on a weekly basis. That's what the industry does now. The problems with that, in fact, these trainings could be, I could do a Takt planning episode for the next 50 episodes if I covered everything, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to cover all of the sins and evils of the previous system. But the problem with that system is that it's not collaborative. We're shoving things down people's throats, and we're not letting the people actually doing and planning the work, the last planners, actually go do the things that they need to be doing. Now, let's talk about what the industry is generally heading towards right now, which I like, which is that we have a master schedule with milestones, and that we have to go do phase planning. And the way we do phase planning is by using pull planning techniques with the group of people, with the last planners, to find out how are we actually going to plan and commit to the work up into that milestone. And once we have that, we have make-ready schedules that will allow us to make work ready with materials, information, and manpower. And then from that, you might have a 3 to 6 week look ahead schedule where you get into even deeper make ready planning, and you and the rest of the trade partners on site are able to again schedule equipment, manpower, information, materials, everything to those dates. And then on a weekly basis, you go into a meeting, the last planner meeting or the weekly work planning meeting or whatever you call it, the trade partner weekly tactical or your sub meeting, whatever your company calls it, and you detail out the weekly work plan for next week, which should be committed to 100% by everyone, and you run through day by day what everyone's going to do and make commitments in a greater level of detail, and you create what's called a weekly work plan. And that's collaborative, and you are a facilitator, and trades are making their own commitments, and there's a lot of discussion on how to actually make work ready and execute a good plan. Then from that, every day there's a daily huddle where we talk about the commitments of every day, and we make sure that that work is ready on a daily basis. Now, most people have those daily huddles in the morning. I have switched those to where they're foreman huddles in the afternoon, and then we communicate that to the workers the next day in the morning, and the foreman can be with their workers. But most people in the industry do that daily huddle in the morning and make sure that they're focused on what's called a day plan. And then on a daily basis, they track the percent of promises complete, meaning how many things did we and did we not get done, and they strive to be above 80%. The other thing in there that's critical is what the industry calls constraints and what I call roadblocks. I think roadblocks is a better term. And the removal of the roadblocks to clear the work and to create flow. And then from the percent plan complete, they manage variation, and they know what activities and they know what things have been holding up the group from meeting their promises, and they focus on a plan, do, check, act cycle. And so you have your master schedule, your phase planning, your make ready, your weekly work planning, your percent plan complete, your roadblock removal system, and the management of variation on the project site, your variances, And that is the general system that our industry is heading towards. Now, I do like that, but because the master schedule and the pull plan, or well, let me say this, because the master schedule is usually done in a CPM tool, and then we plug in our pull plans into that CPM tool, we still have an accidental tendency to push things in a forward and backward pass and push things to the left and have them done outside of a flow. And so let's go ahead and talk from that to what is takt planning. Well, again, takt planning, takt is the German word for rhythm or baton, and it symbolizes that we have actually a rhythm, a stagger, and a flow in the project. So it's based around the concept that everything should have a rhythm and that you can communicate the overall project plan typically on one page. You can communicate this on one single page, and it makes everything predictable. Now, so when we talk about last planner systems and when we talk about Scrum, and both of them I love and appreciate, it gives you a more agile way to plan. It gives you a more nimble way to plan. However, construction is based off of an enormous supply chain, meaning if we don't make it somewhat predictable, we can't head all other supply chains in the right direction. So construction sometimes needs to get more into a flowable supply chain predictive kind of a sequence, especially if you can adjust your geographical production areas, because we have so many supply chains. If we're doing things like software development, or if we're creating things in a manufacturing plant and we have most of the stock materials, we can have more agile and nimble systems, which I totally advocate and I love. But if we're ordering air handlers that take 120 days to get here, and curtain wall, which takes 9 months to go ahead and design and fabricate and get to the project site, we have to have somewhat of a predictable schedule. So Takt gives us that predictability and allows us to manage the overall supply chain. The other thing with Takt, and this is probably the big thing, I get a lot of comments of why would we want to stop using CPM or reduce the use of CPM, or only use CPM down to a level 2 or level 3 schedule and switch to Takt. The main reason, and I need you to hear me on this, the main reason is that it reduces the load on our project teams and it increases our capacity, meaning it takes so little time to create a beautiful and wonderful Takt plan and to manage it with a group of people and a team and to remove the roadblocks that you will gain back that time in the field, that safety presence in the field, that quality presence in the field, and your time to actually adjust to issues and to manage that project in a way that you're a leader on the front lines and back at headquarters. That's the main reason. Here are some other really good reasons, is that Takt planning allows you to have geographical control. So you know where trade partners are going to be, so you can assign them geographical control and hold them accountable. And Takt, you're able to modify the last planner system and have modified last planner meetings and manage this in the same exact way with less burden on the project team. So let me cover a couple of basics and then we'll continue to talk about these in the next podcasts. Okay, so here is how it's laid out. If you can visualize it, visualize an Excel sheet, and I've done this before, but visualize an Excel sheet and all of the columns are weeks on a calendar. And all of the rows, if you're doing just one functional area like interiors, all of the rows are areas. And then on other Takt plans where we show the entire project, the rows can be formatted where you have one row over here to the left, which represents a geographical area. And on the same row over to the right, you can have a different label, which is a geographical area label for another area. And so that's really important for us to keep in mind. But the focus is that the columns are the weeks and time, and the rows are the geographical areas and the sequence. And so that's how it's laid out. And so what you'll do is you'll have a number of cells in there that represent current work packages or scopes. And I'm going to describe this in a simple manner, the way I understand it, and I'll explain the complex concepts of Takt in the future. But basically, you'll have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and these numbers represent a certain scope. So 1 might be layout of walls inside the building. Number 2 might be overhead fire sprinkler. Number 3 might be, priority walls. Each one of these numbers represents a scope. And so as you see them in a single row, that represents a sequence per typically a 10,000 square foot geographical area, and where those numbers are positioned on this takt plan shows when they start in time on the week that they're going to start. And what you'll see is this, it's not a waterfall effect, but you'll see them with a 1 week or a 2 week or 3 week or 4 week stagger, and you'll see row after row, but they stagger down and over, or if you're using graphical schedules, typically they use this on high rises, or people just like to do this anyway. You'll see it from bottom to top, where the first activity, let's say it's area 4A, and that starts on January 9th. Area 4B will start on January 23rd. Area 4C will start on February 6th. So there's a stagger on the starts per geographical area, and it either trails up or trails down, depending on how you format your takt plan. And so it's very easy. Once you get used to reading these things, and I'll show you how to read these on the videos that I'm going to create for you. But once you actually know how to read these, you can in very short order find out when we're going to do something. So if I said, I want to know when we're going to do millwork on level 3 area A, I could go over, and in this little matrix, I know that I'm starting that on April 10th. That gives me a predictable date that helps my supply chain know when it needs to hit. When the supply chain usually is, as it's tied to a CPM schedule that changes all the time, it's always changing, and it creates variation, and it increases inventory levels, which slows down your entire production cycle. And so these schedules are fantastic. They're usually communicated on one page, and the reason it's so important that they're predictable is because we want to reduce manpower counts and material counts and inventory and get to right-sizing inventory buffers. So if we don't create a takt plan, specifically for interiors, but for the whole project, and if we don't hold the schedule generally, meaning, a takt plan can change once or twice in a project, or maybe even more if that's needed, but generally you're going to hold that rhythm, you're going to hold that flow, you're going to hold that stagger, and you're going to keep dates consistent in as much as you can, then your trade partners will get used to a system where they can bring out materials just in time. And if you don't do this, if you don't use takt planning, and it's our normal CPM and things are moving forward and back and all over the place, then trade partners get used to the concept that you're going to ask for something either early or late. And what do they then do? They bring all their materials out on site and stage them because they have to adapt to the whims of the project team. And it's just not healthy. It's just not good. So what we need to be doing is having a predictable schedule in a flow, in a rhythm, hold the dates, and don't move it forward or back. Superintendents are notorious for saying, oh, we have an open area. Let's move all these people forward. Well, when you move 40 different contractors, or let's even be conservative here, 15 different contractors forward by a couple of days or weeks, what does that do to the supply chain? It descends everybody into chaos. We can't be doing that. We need to hold the rhythm. We need to hold the schedule and keep that locked so that people know when to bring out materials just in time. And I would actually say in construction, I don't think you can bring things out just in time unless you use takt planning. I don't think it's possible, but you can 100% reduce manpower counts, reduce material counts, reduce inventory, get to the right inventory buffer sizes. And on a construction site, if you use takt planning and keep things on a steady, consistent flow and lock in the dates. So what you'll want to do is make sure that you and your superintendent and your project manager, you don't start moving things around. You keep it locked in, you keep it in a flow, you keep the stagger, and your supply chains can come on site at the right time. Now, why is inventory such a sin? Well, overproduction and then inventory, which is a correlation, are the mothers or is the mother of all waste, because it means that you then have to move materials and inventory them and replace damaged ones, and it causes overtransportation, movement. It creates all of the other things, the defects, the other wastes in the cycle in construction. And so that's why inventory is evil unless it's inventory buffers. An inventory buffer is the right sizing of material inventories so that you have enough material to go put in place, but not too much to where it causes waste. I said that really well. That's awesome. So inventory buffers are great. Now, the inventory buffer for a conduit might be a day. For drywall, it might be 2 days. For curtain wall, it might be 3 weeks. For air handlers, it might be a week. We have to right-size inventory buffers and not have them all be the same, but have the right-size inventory buffers and then bring those those materials in just at the right time ahead of that inventory buffer so that you can go build things on time and you always have materials to build with, but not too much to where it causes waste and defects. So that is the key to this entire system. Now, takt planning will not work if we start to move it around too much. And it will not work if you don't start to use a fanatical roadblock removal system. Meaning now that you don't spend 80% of your time actually managing a schedule and inputting things into CPM and using all of these other techniques that are common with CPM, now that you just have a one-page schedule and you're keeping everybody on track and everyone sees as a group, knows as a group, and acts as a group, the key is to switch that 80% of time you used to use in managing schedules and switch that to the prevention and removal and identification of roadblocks. I got that out of order. Identification or prevention and the removal of roadblocks. And so what you do is you're looking out 6 weeks. You're planning with your trade partners. You're studying the plans. You're making sure to solicit commitments and getting the roadblocks from people. And the management team is focused on clearing the path because you have this takt train coming down the tracks and you need to clear those tracks to make sure that it's a consistent and smooth flow of work. The other thing, takt planning will not work if we don't go to a system where we finish as we go. That means we punch as we go. We do incomplete work lists as we go. We finish quality as we go. We don't just shove everything forward to the project, get it done as soon as we can, and then leave ourselves a couple of months at the end of the job to fix all of our screw-ups. With takt, you follow the rhythm, you hold the dates, you keep the dates. It's on this beautifully formatted schedule on Excel or in one of these softwares like Takting, which I really like, or there's others, right? vPlanner does it as well. I love the way vPlanner does it. So you can do that. And once you see where we're supposed to be on a weekly basis, then you know where we're supposed to do incomplete work lists and punch lists and quality checks on a weekly basis. You hold that flow and you finish as you go. Every takt planning system has to do those few things. They have to switch to fanatical roadblock removal. We have to hold the dates and reduce inventory and have materials brought just in time. And we have to finish as we go with quality systems in order for this to work. Now, when we control things geographically, the trade partners have control. If they're controlling that 10,000 square foot of area, they control the trade damage. They control the cleanliness. They sweep the floors. They make sure everything's safe. They make sure that they're finishing as they go. It reduces the amount of load on the superintendent to manage these areas when we say you, because you're on this takt cycle and you're in this geographical area, you need to control this area and be big boys and girls and control this area. That's when things get remarkable, and that's when you can actually track and assign tickets for trade damage, right? The other thing is you have so much more time in your meetings to actually collaborate with trades because it's a simple schedule. Now, I'm going to leave you with wanting more. I'm only on slide number 5 out of like 50 different slides. Let's keep talking about this tomorrow. But really the challenge is, please reach out to me with questions on a daily basis when you're getting these so that I can answer them and we can go through this. And I want to whet your appetite for takt planning so you can go learn more and we can change this industry. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.